Keep pushing. On to that.
For decades, history books have depicted Neanderthals as savage, mindless, and bloodthirsty brutes. But the truth is entirely the opposite. Today, we are traveling back in time 50,000 years to the deadly Zagros Mountains to see how a one-armed, blind man completely changed the definition of what it means to be human. Imagine the Zagros Mountains of modern-day Iraq, roughly 50,000 years ago. The air is a jagged blade of ice. The wind does not just blow, it screams through the limestone crags, carrying the scent of cedar and the distant, low growl of a cave lion. In this world, survival is a mathematical equation with no room for error. To live, you must run. To eat, you must kill. To stay warm, you must constantly move. In the brutal logic of the Pleistocene epoch, a broken leg isn't just an injury, it's a death sentence. A blind eye isn't a disability. Nature marks it as a debt to be collected by the nearest predator. But inside a cavern known today as Shannidar, a flicker of light defies the encroaching dark. There, huddled near a hearth, sits a man. He is not a modern human like you or me. He is a Neanderthal. By the standards of his time, he is an old man, perhaps in his late 40s. Look closer at him. His right arm is a stump, ending abruptly above the elbow. His left eye is clouded, the socket crushed by a massive blow years prior. He walks with a heavy, agonizing limp, because his right leg is riddled with deformity. He cannot hear well. Bony growths have clogged his ear canals. By every law of the wild, this man should have been bones and dust decades ago. He cannot hunt. He cannot flee. He cannot contribute to the brutal physical demands of a nomadic tribe. And yet, he is alive. He is warm. He is fed. For decades, we called the Neanderthals brutes. We called them primitive cavemen. We used their very name as an insult for the unintelligent. But the broken bones of the man in Shannidar cave tell a different story. A story that forces us to redefine what it actually means to be human. To understand him, we must go back to the mud and the stone of the Ice Age, to discover that the greatest invention of our ancestors wasn't the spear or the fire. It was kindness. For the better part of the 20th century, the Neanderthal was the other. When the first nearly complete skeleton was found in 1908, the old man of La Chapelle in France, the scientific community saw exactly what they expected to see: a slouching, dim-witted beast. French anthropologist Marcelin Boule reconstructed the skeleton with bent knees and a hunched back. He viewed the Neanderthal as an evolutionary dead end, a creature incapable of standing fully upright, let alone possessing a soul or a culture. This image stuck, becoming the blueprint for every caveman trope in history. But there was a flaw in Boule's vision. He wasn't looking at a primitive species. He was looking at a sick individual. The old man of La Chapelle suffered from debilitating osteoarthritis and a chronic bone infection. He wasn't slouching because he was an ape. He was slouching because he was in pain. It wasn't until the 1950s and 60s, when Ralph Selecki began excavating the Shannidar cave in Iraq, that this narrative shattered. Among the 9 sets of remains found there, one stood out: Shannidar 1. When we look at the skeletal pathology of Shannidar 1, we aren't just looking at a medical report. We are looking at a biography of trauma. The injuries he sustained, the crushed eye socket, the amputated arm, the fractured foot, occurred years, perhaps decades before his death. In a modern context, we have hospitals, social safety nets, and soft beds. In the Pleistocene, nursing meant someone else had to carry your water. It meant someone else had to give up their share of meat so you could eat. It meant the entire group had to slow their pace across treacherous mountain passes so you wouldn't be left behind for the wolves. This is a definitive proof of altruism. It proves that Neanderthals possessed the cognitive ability to value a life not for what it could provide in terms of labor, but for who that person was to the group. To truly appreciate the context of the prehistoric world, we have to look at the daily grit of survival. Neanderthals were hyper-carnivores. They didn't just hunt, they engaged in confrontational hunting. They didn't have bows and arrows. They had heavy wooden spears that required them to get up close and personal with a 1,500-pound bison or a woolly rhino. The injury rate for Neanderthals was astronomical. Their skeletons often show a pattern of trauma similar to modern rodeo riders. Every day was a gamble with gravity and teeth. Now, consider the old man of La Chapelle again. He had lost at least 15 of his teeth. In a world without blenders or soft processed foods, survival without teeth is a death sentence unless someone intervenes. The existence of these survivors points to a silent, beautiful act of labor. Someone, a partner, a child, a friend, likely spent hours every day processing his food. They might have used stone tools to tenderize meat or even chewed the food themselves before passing it to him. This is a level of intimacy that shatters the image of the unfeeling brute. Furthermore, the old man had such severe arthritis in his neck and back that he couldn't have carried a pack or joined the hunt. Yet, he lived into his 50s, an age that made him a village elder in an era where most died in their 20s. Why keep him? Perhaps he was a keeper of fire. Perhaps he was a master toolmaker whose one-handed skill surpassed those with two. Or perhaps they kept him because they loved him. Evolution is often described as a race to the top, where only the fittest survive. But these skeletons suggest that for hominins, fitness wasn't just about individual muscle. It was about the strength of the social bond. A group that cares for its wounded is a group that survives longer, because it preserves the knowledge and experience of its elders. This capacity for care isn't just an outlier found in a couple of caves. It is a recurring theme across the history of our genus. To understand the humanity of the Neanderthal, we can look at other examples that mirror this prehistoric empathy. Take, for instance, a discovery from the Windover Bog in Florida. Archaeologists found the remains of a teenage boy who lived roughly 7,000 years ago. He suffered from a severe form of spina bifida, a birth defect that would have left him paralyzed from the waist down. In a nomadic hunter-gatherer society, a child who cannot walk is an enormous cost. And yet, skeletal analysis showed he was well-nourished and lived to the age of 15. For 15 years, his community carried him. They moved him from camp to camp, through swamps and forests. They didn't see him as a burden. They saw him as a son of the tribe. Or look at the Man of Dmanisi in the Republic of Georgia, dating back a staggering 1.8 million years, long before Neanderthals or even modern humans existed. This individual had lost all but one tooth years before he died. His jawbone had even begun to resorb, a process that takes a long time. This tells us that the trait of caring for the elderly and infirm didn't start with us. It didn't even start with Neanderthals. It is a deep, ancient thread that runs through the very heart of the hominin lineage. When we look at Shannidar 1, we see a mirror. He wasn't almost human. In his suffering, and in the care he received, he was entirely human. He represents the moment our ancestors decided that a life had intrinsic value, regardless of its utility. As we dive deeper into the boneyard of the Ice Age, we realize that life for Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, was just as grueling. We find the same healed fractures, the same dental abscesses, and the same signs of starvation. The Neanderthals weren't weaker than us. They were arguably tougher. They lived through multiple glacial cycles that would have wiped out most modern populations. Their brains were, on average, larger than ours. They buried their dead. They used pigments for body art. They wore eagle talons as jewelry. The real tragedy is that for a century, we used the caveman myth to distance ourselves from them. We wanted to believe we were special, but we were the only species capable of complex emotion. By separating ourselves from the Neanderthal, we actually diminished our own history. If we believe that only Homo sapiens can be kind, then kindness is just a biological quirk of our species. But if we accept that Neanderthals were compassionate, then kindness becomes something much grander. It becomes a fundamental strategy of the human experience. The Shannidar cave was occupied on and off for nearly 60,000 years. Generations of Neanderthals returned to that same shelter, sitting by the same fires, looking out at the same mountain peaks. When Shannidar I died, likely crushed by rocks falling from the cave ceiling, his people didn't just leave his body to the scavengers, they buried him. Some researchers even found traces of flower pollen in the soil around the graves: yarrow, cornflower, and mallow. While some scientists argue the pollen was brought in by burrowing rodents, the flower burial hypothesis remains one of the most evocative images in archaeology. It suggests a funeral. It suggests mourning. It suggests that 50,000 years ago, a group of people stood in the cold, dark mud and felt the same hollow ache of loss that we feel today. What is the message left for us in the stones of Shannidar? We live in a world that often feels fractured. We are surrounded by technology that connects us digitally, but can leave us feeling more isolated than a lone hunter on a glacier. We are often told that human nature is inherently selfish, but we are wired for competition and greed. But the broken, healed bones of a one-armed, half-blind Neanderthal say otherwise. They tell us that even in the most desperate circumstances, when the world is a frozen wasteland and death is always one heartbeat away, we chose to be kind. We chose to hold the hand of the dying. We chose to chew the food for the toothless. The lesson of Shannidar I is that compassion is not a luxury of civilization. It is the very foundation of it. We didn't become human because we learned to walk upright or make fire. We became human the moment we decided that we wouldn't leave our wounded behind. We are the only humans left on this planet. The Neanderthals, the Denisovans, and the others are gone. But we carry their DNA in our blood, and more importantly, we carry their legacy in our hearts. Next time you see someone struggling, or you feel the world is too cold to endure, remember the man in the Iraqi cave 50,000 years ago. Remember that his life was hard, but it was made possible by the quiet, unrecorded acts of love from his tribe. The humanity we prize so much, it isn't ours alone. It was a gift passed down through the ages, whispered from one cave fire to the next. Our task is to make sure that fire never goes out.